Good evening, everyone. I'm Amy Aronson, and I'm a supporter and former board member of Sixth and I. Lashana Tova. Happy New Year to anyone that celebrates. It is my pleasure to welcome all of you in person and our virtual audience tuning in from around the country to our historic building, which dates back to 1908. My grandfather was born around the corner at 7th and E Street, and he was one of the original members of this congregation. When the space was the home for the Turner Memorial MEE Church, he was the custodian of these 10 commandments that you can see behind me for the last 50 years. After he passed away, it was an honor to return them to their original place here at Sixth and I. I am thrilled to welcome you tonight and to Bobbi Brown. As a self-described short Jewish girl in a world of tall Barbies who grew up in suburban Chicago, Bobbi went on to become a beauty industry trailblazer, a pioneering entrepreneur, a world-renowned makeup artist. Through a combination of grit, authenticity, and kindness, she built her first company, Bobbi Brown Cosmetics, into a billion-dollar brand. Those qualities have endured across decades of reinvention. Bobbi has always found success remaining true to herself. Bobbi didn't just change how people wear makeup, she changed how they see themselves. With Jones Road Beauty, the clean beauty brand Bobbi launched when she was 62 years old, she upholds her long-standing conviction that real and unfiltered is what is most beautiful. Bobbi makes clear that beauty is about enhancing what is already there. More than any other great product, Bobbi's gift has been not only the permission to accept who you are in the mirror, but to celebrate it. Tonight, we're here to celebrate Bobbi Brown's new memoir, Still Bobbi. She will be in conversation with Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist Robin Givhan, and we're delighted to have you with us. Robin is a senior critic at large for the Washington Post, where she writes about politics, race, and the arts. Previously, she covered the fashion industry as a business, as a cultural institution, and as a pure pleasure. Robin is the author of Make It Ours, Crashing the Gate of Culture with Virgil Abloh, and we have autographed copies for sale tonight. So thank you again for joining us. Please help us give Bobbi Brown and Robin Givhan a warm welcome to Sixth and I.
Thank you.
Okay, we did the right thing. We started well.
We're very worried about that choreography. So as you can tell, I enjoyed this book. Thank you all for being here. Thank you, Bobbi, for allowing me to be your chat partner. I think everyone is always curious to know what possesses someone to sit down and write a book. And I am curious why you decided to write this one, particularly because in an interview you did recently, you sort of said that you felt the need you chose your words carefully.
Yes, well, I did not really set out to write a memoir. I really didn't ever think about it. And one day someone showed up at my door and she had an appointment. And she was through a friend, and she was an agent. And she said, I'm a big fan of yours, and I love following you on social media. I learn a lot from you, and I want to write your memoir. I want to, represent you. I said, I don't want to write a memoir. Like, I just felt way too young to write a memoir. And I'm not done with my story. But she said, no, I really want to do it.
There can always be a part two.
I guess there could be a part two. A few things did happen since the book was turned in, and she talked me into it. And she said, all right, well, we'll just write your story. And then my story kind of started being written, and it became a memoir. And I recommend for anyone that has an opportunity to write your story, even if it's not something you want to get published, because it's really cathartic. I learned a lot about myself, thinking about, my family and why I'm this way and how I do things. So it was a really great experience.
Well, you start out obviously like talking a lot about your parents and how their different personalities and their different interests have shaped you. So can you tell people a little bit about your parents? I mean, it seems like you had the perfect parents to become what you became.
Well, I mean, I think no one has perfect parents. There's no such thing, except my son that's sitting in the second row. He happens to have done a good job. Ha 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 ha. So, since he's the only one of my kids that's here tonight,
He's the perfect child.
he is the perfect child. He is my perfect child. But, it starts with my grandparents because, when I was a little kid, my grandparents were so involved in our family. I used to see them all the time, and I used to watch Papa Sam, who came from Russia, build his business, and I used to sit there and help him stuff envelopes, his marketing things that he would send to people. So I kind of learned a lot by watching this. But Papa worked a lot, and he worked hard, but he always came home to the family. He always wanted to know, what we were doing. So the family values definitely started when I was young. And Nana just loved me unconditionally, no matter what I did. There was never anything I did wrong. And then my parents were incredibly young when I was born. I'm the oldest of three kids. They were 21 and 22 when I was born. And by 25, they had three kids. So we kind of grew up together. But they were hardworking, creative. My mom, a stay-at-home mom. My dad, an attorney who had a creative side and left his law practice a few times to try different endeavors. One of them, he became a writer for a travel magazine, and then he realized he needed money, and he went back to being a lawyer.
And your mother had a real sense of aesthetics,
Big time.
a very intense sense of
Big time.
aesthetics.
My mother, everything was about how you look. First of all, it was about being a good, nice person. That was the most important thing. But then she really focused on looks because she focused on her looks. She never left the house without, I think it was like a beehive, back in the day. And she, used to, I think she championed Jackie Kennedy and eventually when she got older, it was Joan Collins. So, but she was always well coiffed and done. And, and she didn't mean to be judgy on me, but she would kind of, like she once called me and said, "I saw you on Oprah." I said, "Oh." And I was waiting for her to say, "You did great." She said, "What were you wearing?"
Oh,
She said, "Was that a suit?" I said, "Well, my pants were navy, my jacket was black." She says, "Oh, you should have seen what Cindy Crawford was wearing afterwards." She didn't mean it. Like, she didn't mean it, but she could be very judgmental.
you said as you were writing the book that you learned a lot about yourself. I mean, in thinking about your mother, did you find that you were rebelling against her focus on appearance, or you were sort of succumbing to it?
Well, I think neither. I definitely wasn't rebelling. I'm not a real rebellious person. I don't break rules. I just make them up, which is a different thing. Yeah. But it's just, I tried to be as glamorous as my mom. Like, I remember trying her clothes on, and I couldn't get them over my knees. She was skinny little, woman with really high heels. And I tried to be as glamorous as her, with makeup, with everything. And I just looked ridiculous. It wasn't me. And, it's funny, early on, I guess I learned that being comfortable is what makes you your best self.
And as talking still about your beginnings, I know that a lot of times when people look back, part of the telling of the memoir is the hurdles that you overcome. But I'm also curious, as you looked back, what were the advantages that you had? Perhaps advantages that you didn't know in real time, but with a little bit of hindsight became evident.
Well, I was never a good student, and my parents...
That's not an advantage.
No, it's not an advantage. Well, it is now, because how many people build billion-dollar brands that got D's in math? Okay, so, I think by not being like everyone else, like I wasn't a traditional learner, I didn't excel at certain things. I didn't do cartwheels like my friends, whatever it was. I've just kind of learned that, I have to do things my way and around and different. So, looking back, things weren't handed to me. And I really worked hard and struggled for these things. And I didn't realize until I was older, what my superpower was.
Yeah.
And how smart I actually was, but smart differently than my friends were smart.
Well, that reminds me of an incident that you describe in the book, and talking about, as you said, making up your own rules, and you describe thinking about makeup and thinking that perhaps you could get a job in television. And you wrote to a cousin, I think it was, who had had some success in Hollywood, and the cousin wrote back.
A cousin that I never met, by the way. I'd never met this guy.
Never
But
met.
he was a cousin.
And the letter that you sent had been returned, marked up like an English teacher, and it said, quote, "Work on your grammar and delivery before you write anyone another letter."
Ouch. Ouch.
Now, what I found fascinating about your response is you did not rework the letter. You chose a different path.
I just thought, I said, well, that's not going to work, so I'm going to do something else. And I remember I was, I felt bad when I finally got it. First of all, it took him months to write back. And
that's what you got.
Well, and that's what I got. And then I'm like, I didn't rewrite it and send it back. And you know what? I guess I didn't really want to go to LA and work in TV. So instead I went to New York and worked in fashion.
And so tell us about your very first professional job doing makeup.
My first job was with Glamour magazine. This photographer, Brigitte Lancôme, hired me, or the magazine hired me, to do a dancer. It was an exercise story. It was one page. It was a dancer. And there was, like 15 different shots on a page of different whatever exercise routine. And I'll never forget, I arrived at the day at work, and I did her makeup, and she said, her feet are, she was French, her feet are disgusting. Do something with her feet. So I had to make up this dancer's feet. That was really not one of my finest moments, but we did it. And the exciting thing is when you're a new makeup artist, when the magazine comes out and it says on the side, makeup by Bobbi Brown, was like, oh my God, that was like the greatest thing.
And at that time, there was a very sort of hyper-real style of makeup. You obviously had to sort of do the style when you were starting out.
I tried.
How did that go?
I tried. When I first moved to New York, it was like 1981. And so the style of makeup was not just contouring, but it was like blue and yellow and Technicolor eyes and, foundation that was, white on people's skin. And whatever it was, it just didn't work. Either I had no talent, I wasn't good at it, or I couldn't make them look good. And, I tried, and once I got hired to do a cover of British Cosmopolitan with Jerry Hall, who was then married to Mick Jagger. I was a wreck, first of all. She was so lovely. I did her makeup, and I showed her a mirror, because I always show people mirrors. I want them to like it. And she said, "Oh, it's lovely. Do you mind if I touch it up?" I said, "Not at all." And I sat there and watched her redo the entire face. But you know what? The cover came out. I got a credit, and, it was okay. But I also realized that I learned by watching. So even all the years I did makeup at Fashion Week, I did Michael Kors and Oscar de la Renta and Bill Blass, I always showed the models a mirror, and the models would either say lovely, or they'd say, "Can I just have the pencil, let me fix my brow, or let me fix the way you did my lip." And instead of feeling bad about myself, I realized it was an opportunity for me to learn how to hone my talent and how to get better.
And was there anything in particular that they were always honing in on, that they felt like they wanted to tweak a little bit?
Different on every single person. Yeah. When you go to the hairdresser and you get your hair blown, you say thank you, and then as soon as you get out, you kind of fix it. I mean, you know, women are like that. I mean, I have someone that does my makeup all the time. I rarely say thank you and go onto the set. I'm always looking in the mirror and fixing something. I just think it's a woman's, you know, nature to do
I
that.
would find it very stressful as a makeup artist to be assigned to doing your makeup. Just going to put that out there. I know one of the things that a lot of models would talk about was, particularly models of color, was like they would have to kind of work to get a foundation that worked for their skin. Was that also like something that you sort of learned backstage at shows?
I really champion that. And, you know, a lot of women of color stop me now and they say, you were the only one that ever made foundations to my skin, and there was always a color for us. But the way I learned that is, you know, the first couple times I did a model's makeup, you know, who had dark skin, I really, you know, my makeup that I bought in the department store, just, it didn't work. I mean, it was gray, it was ashy, it was orange, and I figured out that, you know, I needed to fix it. And I had this one photographer I worked with named Walter Chin, and we would always look at, you know, the loop, and he, you know, he was from Jamaica. He was this great guy, and he says, Bobbi, man, come here, look. And he said, tomorrow when you come to work, will you make up the whole body as well as the face? I said, sure. Took my little bottle, did the face, I ran out of it halfway, and then I said, this is really dumb. There has to be a foundation that matches people's skin. And I went to, you know, the nicest department store, bought the most expensive foundations, nothing worked. And then I went to a theatrical makeup store and I bought yellow, red, blue tint, and I fixed all of the foundations the next day I worked. And when we finally looked at a loop, he said, yep, you figured it out. So that's when I knew and understood people's undertones. Some people have yellow, some people have orange, very fair people have pink. So, you know, my style has always been, when you put a foundation on, it should look like you're not wearing anything.
Right.
You should just look like you have even skin.
Wow. When you launched Bobbi Brown, like every step sounded so logical. I mean, that story sounds so logical, right? I mean, but talk about that decision when you launched it with just that selection of lipsticks.
Well, the way I even started making a lipstick is I accidentally met a chemist one day who told me he could make me this lipstick that I told him I was looking for that didn't exist. I looked terrible in my mother's lipsticks. Awful. She wore this like bronzy, shiny, it smelled bad. I won't tell you whose it was, but I remember and I could smell it to this day. And I used to always mix and blend like an eye pencil with a cream blush and make a lipstick that looked like my lip color. And it didn't exist. You couldn't find it. So he made it for me. And I thought, oh my God, I love this. And then I said, I bet I could sell this. And then I realized it's not going to look good on everyone because people have different lip colors. And then I started thinking about all the different women I knew and all their different lip colors. And then I started making colors for all different women. I think I had 7 of them. And then I said, oh my God, not everyone likes a natural lipstick. Some people like orange, pink, and red. So my thought process is always very simple and common sense. That's kind of always been my thing.
And when you are talking to, there might be some entrepreneurs out there in the audience or watching. When you're talking to a chemist, how do you convince this random person that you've met that they should do what you're asking? But not just that, but essentially partner with you.
Well, this particular chemist, he worked for himself. He was a freelance chemist. It was his idea. He said, well, why don't I supply the lipsticks? You sell them. You do all that, and I'll supply them, and we'll split the $15 that we sell the lipsticks for. That's how we started. And I sold them out of my house. I sold them out of my makeup bag. And, I did that for about a year and a half while I was nursing and taking care of one kid and eventually a second kid. So, I just did that on the side.
And you get them into Bergdorf Goodman?
Well, when I got them into Bergdorf Goodman, I needed a different chemist. I needed like a much different situation. So I couldn't continue with the one chemist.
So I would love to talk about two sort of retail giants who have been very influential in your progress, in your career. One of them is Bert Tansky, who was the president of Bergdorf Goodman, and the other was Leonard Lauder of Estee Lauder. And I want to start with Bert Tansky, because you describe him as a quote-unquote real merchant. And that is a phrase that I hear a lot in the fashion industry, that so-and-so is a real merchant. And it's always applied to a very small number of people. What does that mean, to be a real merchant?
I mean, a merchant is someone that knows how to sell something to people, whether it's, how to display it, how to order it in, how to communicate it, how to make the store look, how to make the people feel. He was just incredible. And he was the president of Bergdorf Goodman when I was there. And then he eventually became the president of Neiman Marcus. And, I called him Uncle Bert. He was incredible to me. I'd sit in these meetings and again, this is the girl that got D's in math. And I'd have to sit in these financial meetings with, people that worked for me, and Bert and his team from Neiman Marcus. And he could see I was like, I was zoned out. And he turned to me once and he said, "You know what these numbers mean? Go tell your husband, Steven, that's, renovating a house, to get you the top of the line washer and dryer. You could afford it now." So I knew that we had good business. And he always became my friend. And, I danced with him at events, and we just had this great relationship. And fast forward, I didn't see him for years. And my husband and I live in Florida in the winter, and we live in this gated community. And who lives down the street? Bert Tansky. So Uncle Bert. He, he was celebrating his 85th birthday with his kids, and unfortunately he passed away this year. So yeah, big regret that I didn't get to spend more time with Uncle Bert.
And when you talk about sort of that kind of merchant, I mean, compare it to, if that's a real merchant, a true merchant, what seems to be multiplying today?
Well, there's not very many stores, first of all. So, like the world, is different. The fashion world is different. The beauty world's different. Media, everything is different. And, I don't look at that as, a bad thing. I just look at it as an opportunity to try different and new things. So, he was a real merchant. But there's real merchants on Instagram. They sure sell me a lot of black pants. And I return every single one of them.
And the second person was Leonard Lauder. And he is the one who convinced you to bring Bobbi Brown to Estee Lauder. What did he say that made you do it?
Well, first thing he said was, "You're beating us in all the stores, so I want to buy you." And I remember saying, "Well, we're not for sale." It wasn't, we were not looking to sell our company. It was 4.5 years since we really launched it at Bergdorf Goodman. But after spending a night with him, I knew that was what I wanted to do. There's always...
Not like a night.
No. Well, no. I went home and slept in my own bed. But we had dinner at his house, my then partner at the time. And, I don't write about a lot of things in the book because I don't want to hurt people's feelings. But my husband and I had business partners that we started the company with, and we were not getting along. It was really a tough relationship. And so selling Bobbi Brown to Estee Lauder was the greatest thing besides the financial part of it. They wouldn't be our problem anymore. So it was, and she ended up staying at the company for about a year after they bought it, and we moved on.
Yeah. And for a time, it was a really great relationship.
I stayed 22 years.
Yeah.
Now, how many people sell their companies and stay more than a year or two? I stayed 22 years. 15 years were magical, maybe 16 years, and then things got tougher and tougher and more challenging, and they got really awful the last 2 years. The last year was literally torture.
And I mean, what was it about the way that Lauder worked, Leonard Lauder, the way that he worked, that made it work for so many years? And then
He wasn't
what
as
shifted?
involved. He was not the CEO anymore, and he was, chairman and not around. And, the difference is when Leonard was there, he never talked down to me. He never made me feel bad for the things that would come out of my mouth that weren't, corporate speak. I understood, and he believed I really understood what women wanted. He supported me. He always made sure that I was getting what I needed to grow the business. There was another CEO there at the time, a guy named Fred Langhammer, that used to write me thank you notes for the beautiful products that I created that we made, that made the season for them. I mean, just all this kindness. And then things changed, a new regime came in, and they were not those people. And it was tough.
I mean, obviously things change,
Yeah.
life moves on. But it seems that a lot of what made both Leonard, if I may, and Bert, the kind of businessmen that they were, seems to be a real sense of humanity.
Right.
Like they
Yes.
recognize they were working with a person and not
Right,
numbers.
100%. They were mensches, true mensches. And they were tough. I mean, these were not pushover guys.
Yeah.
These were very successful men that were, doing incredible things, and they were just really supportive of me. And if I ever had a problem or an issue, I would just go right to the top and talk to them about it. What do you think? What should I do? I'm frustrated with this. What do I do about this? And we talked through it.
I mean, as the new, there was a new CEO, and that CEO said, women don't want to be pretty. Pretty is for girls. A woman wants to be beautiful. And this was in reaction to
To a campaign
campaign
that was called Pretty Powerful.
Powerful.
That it was a campaign to empower women, not just that are buying the makeup, but women that couldn't afford to buy the makeup. We were doing a lot of things to help women, and it was called Pretty Powerful because I think women want to be pretty. I think pretty's a good thing.
And this was a male CEO
This was a male CEO with
who
an
was
accent.
telling you, the woman,
Yes, he was telling me
what women
and
wanted.
I'll never forget because I sat there and I listened and I listened. And I used to go to these meetings all the time and, listen and I didn't want, it was like a waste of my time and energy to like really argue back. But I remember I said, my husband thinks I'm my most attractive without any makeup on and, maybe like an oversized man's shirt. And, because he was saying what men think of, how they want to see their women. I'm like, not all men are like that. And honestly, every single person sitting at this table went, because I spoke up to the CEO. And because I just said my opinion.
And this was part of the book that was really surprising to me because I naively thought that if you are the founder of a company, even if you sell that company, but you are still working at that company, that your opinion would be A, valued, and B,
Respected?
respected.
You would think. Right.
So-
And it was for most of the years until it wasn't. And by the way,
Do you think you started to have to pay like a woman tax? Like they would have listened more and respected you more? Had you?
Yes, I mean,
uh-huh.
I always, I probably had a reputation of being difficult, but I was really clear and firm what I wanted. And if I was a man, they wouldn't say I was difficult. They would just say I was strong.
Yeah.
But I don't care.
You can applaud that.
And by the way, like, as a businesswoman, details mattered. Like, I was told to get out of the details. Absolutely not. Like, details are what makes a business special. I mean, my husband and I own a hotel. If we don't walk around and, like, check every little thing, other people notice it. So the details really matter.
I mean, leaving must, as you write, was devastating.
It was.
Freeing, but
Right.
devastating.
Right.
I mean, how did you balance those two emotions?
Well, it's funny. As soon as I left the building and went down in the elevator, and if you've ever been in the GM building, it's 42 floors, so it takes a while to get down. Just this incredible relief left my body because I don't have to. I was so angsted, I don't know if that's a word, but I was angsty about all these details that was starting to fall apart at the company. And I couldn't fix it. And I just felt I had no one to listen to me how I wanted to fix it, but it went away. I had no problems. But then it was like, uh-oh, now what? I mean, I worked 22 years with a calendar that was, 6 months ahead of time, completely full of all the things I was going to be doing. And all of a sudden, had nothing. So, it was an emotional roller coaster in the beginning. And it took me a while to, recalibrate myself.
Yeah.
And it probably took me a good year, I'm not going to lie. And I did things like I have this amazing chiropractor that releases negative emotion. It sounds woo-woo. I don't care. It works. And it really did help. And, then a friend of mine came over who was a life coach. And he said, he was also a yoga instructor. And he says, I just want to come talk to you as a life coach. And I'm like, what's a life coach? And it turns out that a life coach is not like a shrink. It's more like what's going on and how can we make things better, whether it's your habits, your daily habits, or what was bothering me in my house. This was the best. It's not about in the book, but this was the best thing he ever taught me. So many things were like visually driving me crazy in my house. And he had me take a picture of every single thing that was bothering me. And I gave it to him. He came the next week. He printed them out and gave me a Sharpie. He said, circle what's bothering you. And then he came back and he said, okay, this is bothering you. So step 1, do this. Step 2, you could bring these pillows to this places. And I had solutions to everything. And things stopped bothering me. It was a really good thing.
I'm curious, when all of this was happening and you were working through the emotions, talking to your life coach, and you saw Bobbi Brown Cosmetics, Bobbi Brown Essentials continuing to exist.
Yeah. Well, in the beginning, I couldn't even look at it. I couldn't look at the Instagram.
Yeah.
I never used Bobbi Brown makeup from the day I left.
Did you regret naming the brand after
No.
using your name for the brand?
No. I don't regret anything. I don't even regret the miserable years. I don't. I've learned so much. It's made me who I am. And, there sure is like happiness after misery. There is. You just have to be open to it. And, and also it's kind of like when you have a bad breakup. What gets you over the bad breakup? A new boyfriend. Well, I had a new company. So that, that got me over it. But I continued to be entrepreneurial and do things after I left the brand. I, renovated a hotel with my husband. I worked on a wellness brand, which, was very interesting. We launched it at Walmart. I think it was 2 years and then we closed it. It didn't work, but I learned a lot doing it. And I had a whole bunch of projects, so I was busy. I just missed being involved with what I really loved, which was makeup.
And what did you learn from Bobbi Brown that you applied to Jones Road?
Well, the most important thing I learned from Bobbi Brown that I didn't apply is all the things that are a waste of time, money, and energy. A lot of layers and a lot of wasted money. It's just,
When you say layers, you mean layers
people.
of management?
In order to get something done and approved, it wasn't just, okay, yeah, let's do this. No, there was just always layers, and things took forever. So, Jones Road is not that kind of company. But I learned a lot. I mean, I was there 22 years. It was my, business school education. I had really nice, I had this incredible CFO that would come to me at the end of a season or after a launch and explain to me how this launch, which appeared so successful, actually cannibalized the regular business. And now we had to make up those numbers. And then he would explain to me that, how much this one bronzer did. And I'm like, well, I'll just come up with 3 new bronzers to make up the $3 million. And we did. So, I had people, when people explain things to me,
Yeah.
I understand them.
What's the biggest difference between Jones Road and the previous iteration of your work?
Well, it depends if you want to talk about the office, the people. Number one, Jones Road is being run by his older brother, one of my sons, and his wife is the head of brand. So it's,
So it's a family business.
It is a family business. It didn't start to be one. And it's, it's just, I'm surrounded by younger people that aren't really that experienced. Some of them have had one job, a couple of them have had 2. But it's refreshing, and it's fresh, and it's exciting, and it's fun, and it's positive. And, I love going to work.
What are the problems that you have to solve?
It's always people problems, right? I mean, it is. It's people problems. It's, not everyone you hire works out. And, there's a fine line between having structure and having, timelines and being overstructured. And, we also hired a bunch of people that were not right for this new, younger company. People with more experience. So we decided, that's not going to work for us.
And is that because the industry has changed so much, or because you specifically want this to be a different kind of company?
No, this is a different kind of company, and and things have changed, and a lot of people that were a long time, working in the beauty industry don't know all the new ways, and I mean we keep learning new ways, daily. There's so many new things that, social medias and ads and all these things that collabs. I mean, did we ever do collabs years ago?
Yeah.
Never.
Right.
So you do all these things and, and you don't need a lot of people deciding that we should do this. Once you decide to do it, it's like, okay, how are we going to do this? When are we going to do this? All right, let's do this.
And I mean, looking at the way that things are now, I mean, how do you find that you get the word out about the brand? I mean, it's very different.
Oh my God, it's so much easier.
The communication.
It's so much easier because when I first launched Bobbi Brown, in order to get the word out, we had press events. The press would come with their little, notebooks and write it down. I mean, nobody
Very
had
analog.
computers, right? I mean, nobody had computers back then. And then, hopefully it's an article in Women's Wear Daily, and then Vogue, and then the newspapers. So that was big. And then I would go into stores and do personal appearances. Well, if I saw 100 to 120 people, that was a lot. And by the way, you know how much it costs to send me to those stores and put me up and do all of that and hire all the makeup artists? I don't think we ever made a profit doing all that for all those years. And, that was then. And then what happened to Bobbi Brown was I got on the Today Show. I became a beauty editor of the Today Show, which I stayed for 14 years, and that started really raising the profile of the company, even though I never talked about I never talked about Bobbi Brown or the products, because I took it very seriously that I was the beauty editor, and I wanted to be the teacher. So I never pushed the products, but customers are smart, and they all ran to the counter to see what I was talking about.
And now, what's your best friend in terms of marketing? TikTok, Instagram?
It changes. Sometimes it's digital ads. It's always Instagram. It was TikTok for a really long time. Either we're not paying as much attention to it anymore, or, things change. And then there's always something new. Substack. Do you have a Substack yet? Do you have it yet?
I've signed up. I've not written anything.
Do you know how
on
hard it
Substack.
is to do a Substack? You just sit down and you just say, hi, I'm Robin. I'm here. Here's my Substack. That's how you start. So, and I have a Substack and I don't know how to type.
And are you finding that allows you to have a more, obviously, intimate relationship with your customers, so that what are you learning from them?
Well, I mean, Substack, I mean, I used to have a blog, and I loved it, and I loved, I'm a storyteller, and I loved, teaching and doing things. And then the blogs kind of went away. So someone said, why don't you do a Substack? And I said, okay. So I'm again, it's like I'm doing it with my assistant, and our, the way we do it is I give her an idea, or I voice memo what I want to say. She'll retype it out, and then she'll send me 40 pictures, and I'll choose the 6 I want. It's really fun. So it's a combination of teaching and visual. And is it like growing the business, or no? You can make money on Substack.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to. We do charge certain things for special things, and all the money goes to a charity. And then sometimes we just let everyone in. But we have 80,000 roadies at Jones Road. We have a Facebook group. Are there any roadies in this audience?
Roadies.
Okay, so it is the most dedicated group of people. They literally talk to each other. I just bought this. I don't know what to do with it. Oh, let me tell you, it's incredible. 80,000 people are on this Facebook page. So that's for me. If I ever want to know anything, I just go in there. Guys, don't. No, but it's true. And I ask questions like, before
Instant market research.
It's instant market research. And if people don't like things. And, and then you see all these pictures. Like a lot of roadies are literally using Brother P-Touch and putting the name and the color of the products and taping all the Jones Road products. Because, it is hard to read. I'm sorry. Especially when you're doing your makeup without glasses. So
I want to talk a little bit about your work as a makeup artist. And, you mentioned like Kate Middleton has worn Bobbi Brown makeup. You've done makeup for Dr. Jill Biden. I mean, it is such an intimate gesture to do someone's makeup. I mean, it is so, first of all, just the sheer proximity to the person,
Right.
but also the way in which you are allowing them to either be more of themselves or to perhaps hide a little bit of themselves, to highlight something. I mean, what is that process like? And how do you prepare yourself when you are working with someone who perhaps you're a little bit in awe of or admiring of or intimidated by? I mean, what goes through your mind?
Well, if it's someone I don't know, I do my research and I Google them and I see them and, how they like to look. Often you get rehired by the same people because they have a comfort level. And, at this point in my career or even the past 20 years, people would hire me because I had a certain kind of look that I would do. If someone wanted a very, matte, full, contoured face, they're probably not going to hire me. Or if they are, it's not going to go well. So, I once was hired to do Whitney Houston, and she hired me because my name was Bobbi Brown, she told me. And it was not the best situation because she wanted a foundation that was 3 or 4 shades lighter than her skin. And I couldn't do it. And we kind of argued. And, we had to kind of meet in the middle, but, I only worked with her once. I really don't think it was the best fit. Yeah. But I couldn't do a foundation that didn't match her skin. Like, that didn't make any sense to me.
I mean, when you are doing it, I mean, do you get a sense of, or do you try to think about like where the person is going and
100%.
where what their insecurities might be? I mean, do you get that kind of sort of into their head?
Well, it's always, all right, what are you going for? What do you want? It's the same thing when someone comes in and they're getting married or their kid's getting married. What are you wearing? What kind of look do you like? And for people that aren't celebrities, I usually ask them to bring me pictures and show me, because some people say I want a very natural look, but then they really don't. Natural look to one person is different how it is to someone else. So, look, it's communication. Everything is communication. And that's why I show the mirror, what do you think? And I've learned to show mirrors during the process. I'll put a concealer on one side, and I will literally look and say, oh my God, look at the difference. What do you think? And every once in a while, they're like, you know what, it's too light for me. And I'm like, just wait, we're going to fix it. Or they're going to say, I want more coverage. Or they'll say, I want more coverage. So it's, I've learned to not be afraid to ask the questions as I'm going along. It also is common sense because it saves me time from taking it off and starting again. So, but it's, look, when you work with someone that you're, on pins and needles and excited for, it's nerve-wracking. And, by the time you leave, you're kind of depleted. But if it's someone that you work with all the time, then it's like, it's easy and it's fun. And, makeup has brought me into very interesting people's homes and situations. And, I've gotten to work with all these great designers. I used to work with Bill Blass and Oscar de la Renta. And, Bill used to, after I was done working, he would put me in the front row center. And I'd be like backstage at working makeup artists. He goes, no, Bobbi, go sit there. And I'll never forget, I'm looking at all these, you were probably in that front row too, looking at all these people, and I'm, wearing a big navy sweater and sneakers and jeans, and I'm sitting in the front row. But, those experiences are fun.
And when you're thinking about the makeup, I mean, obviously for the runway, you are making it up for the cameras.
Right.
But when you're working with an individual, are you thinking about how they will look in their space, or are you thinking about the photographs that, they're going to be taking if it's a wedding or now Instagram? I mean, I feel like in many ways everyone is, so many people are like made up for the
birth.
constant,
For birth.
ever-present
People have babies
selfie.
and they have photographers, in their birthing room. I mean, I didn't look so good after my giving birth, but people they get blowouts now. So it's just about, it's asking the questions, what are you looking for? What, and people are very happy to tell me. I have these marks on my face I don't know how to cover, and, look at me, I have freckles, I want to cover it. I'm like, no, you don't cover freckles. You even out your skin, but you don't cover freckles.
Are there still real beauty trends? Or I feel like we're so siloed when it comes to the ready-to-wear. Is the same thing true for beauty?
Well, there's so many trends. And, a lot of times trends come from the beauty editors that need to find something new to write about. So, like, what are, Bobbi, what's the trend for the season? And, we would always have, like something that's happening for the season. And so I would make up the trends, and that would become the trend of the season. And so, no, I don't think there's ever been, there's no trends that I think, what's a trend? Natural makeup right now is a trend. I mean, it's not really a trend to me.
Well, I do have to ask you about your thoughts on false eyelashes.
I think they're fine. You could take them off, so they're fine. I think if you get those lashes that last for a week or two, you end up, besides you have to keep going back to get them fixed and filled, they end up breaking off your lashes. So, it's the same thing, when you wear hair tape-ins, you end up breaking off your hair. There's nothing's perfect in the world.
Do you have a max length for eyelashes?
Do I have a what?
A max length, and then after that, you just like...
No, I love really dark black mascara and lots of coats of it. As natural makeup as I like, I find a lot of really rich black mascara makes your eyes pop out. And, I never thought I'd be able to create one that was great because it's a clean mascara. And I always heard that the ingredient in a mascara, you needed it, but somehow this lab figured out how to make it.
So before we get to some audience questions, I want to ask one last one that I had, which is really, what do you think that beauty products do for us? Why do we keep coming back to them, hoping for something?
I really believe that beauty products help you look better and feel better. And by feeling better, you look better. And so there's women that are going through a divorce or women that are going through cancer. I mean, I worked with the women of the World Trade who asked me to come and teach them makeup. And I'll never forget, I burst out in tears when I first went to see them. It was within a year of the World Trade. And after they gave me a Kleenex, one of them said, do you understand, even if it's only for a few minutes to make us feel better, makeup makes us feel better, and that's part of healing. So, I've worked with the women going through Dress for Success. These women that go from welfare to work. And, Dress for Success gives not just makeup and clothes, it gives them teaching skills, how to get jobs and keep jobs. So, the little part of makeup just really helps with self-esteem. Yeah. So I think it's a wonderful thing.
Well, thank you for that. And I am going to get to a few audience questions. And I think that there might be a riot if I don't ask this one.
Okay.
That Dawn, maybe somewhere is
Where's
here,
the five ladies?
There
I heard
okay.
about you. You're all here.
Okay.
It's someone's birthday? Ah, what train are you on? I might see you. Nope. I'm sleeping in.
All right. So Dawn's question. I am here with 5 of my 50-year-old beautiful girlfriends. We leave. We leave tomorrow for our annual girls trip to NYC to your Jones Road store in the Village. 5 exclamation points.
Of course.
We are so excited. What products should be on our radar for our beautiful and experienced skin?
Well, if you haven't tried Miracle Balm or What the Foundation, WTF, or Just Enough Tinted Moisturizer, I mean, it really, hopefully it's going to be different for all you guys, but you will all probably touch somehow the Miracle Balm because there isn't anyone I know that doesn't love Miracle Balm. That's not true. There's a few people that don't like Miracle Balm, but not a lot.
Okay.
And say hi to Flo.
From Sandra, a lot of people have great ideas but hesitate to take the leap to start their own business. What mindset or habits helped you overcome fear and doubt when you first started out? Or I should say, did you have fear?
No, I don't really have fear. I mean, the thing, I'm not a daredevil, so I'm a very cautious person. The only thing I ever fear is the safety of people I love. Like, that's my thing. But when it comes to making a mistake or something not working out, I'm not afraid. And I'm somehow very naive. I just don't think something's not going to work out. And when it doesn't work out, I'm like, oh, that didn't work out. Let me try to do it differently. And my only thing is, if you don't try, you'll never know. Just don't waste a lot of money. I know a lot of people start businesses and then they go, in debt. Just don't waste a lot of money until you know you have something.
If you had to estimate, how much money did you invest in those 5,
10.
The 10 lipsticks?
Well, the first time when I started with the chemist, I didn't invest anything. I had to buy stamps. Like, really nothing. And then when we had a scale up for Bergdorf, we emptied out our bank account, which was $10,000. And that's how we started. And our partners did the same thing. So we started it with, I guess, $20,000.
Yeah.
And never
But
took
that was in
1991, I think.
Yeah.
1990, 1991. But, but we also had a big order. So we had we had to scale up a bit for it, and that's what I don't know how much we spent right away, but we never borrowed money again, ever. And Jones Road, we financed ourselves, and we've never borrowed money.
I know, I'm going, wow.
No.
From Leah, what is something you stressed out about when you were building your business that in retrospect wasn't as consequential as you thought?
Oh my God, so many things. How much time do you have? I mean, first of all, I was always stressed out how I was going to get my work done and travel and be home for the kids, and how I was going to figure out how to get birthday gifts for their friends they were invited, like combining the two things. I think, motherhood for me was one big hack. I figured out a lot of things to make it work and make it easy. And then I was really stressed when things like we ordered, the lipsticks for Bergdorf and the caps didn't fit. And I was like, oh my God, I couldn't believe it. I thought it was over. you know what, I don't stress about those things anymore because we just figure out what to do around it.
Yeah.
And it's not a big deal. So what, it doesn't launch the day it was supposed to. You know, we're not in any department stores. No one's going to know.
And what did you stress about anything
Do I
related to
stress?
the business?
Sure, I stress about things, of course. I stress about people. I stress about communication, meaning, did you do this? You said you were going to do this. I did it. Well, you got to tell me you did it. Like I remember all the things that I, either ask people to do or have to do. And a lot of people are doing such a great job. It's getting done, but they're just forgetting to tell me. Yeah. So I'm trying to teach the younger generation, just tell me.
Do they give you the stare?
No, they're not allowed to give me the stare. No, I don't get the stare. They're not that young, but they're. I mean, I grew up in a different time.
So this is from Thomas. Curious question. I'm an older man whose wife has a sophisticated makeup routine. She uses a lip stain under a bright-colored lipstick. She says that this makes her lipstick last throughout the day, but she refuses to kiss me when she's wearing it because it smears. Is there a solution to this problem? Thomas, if you're here, I will not make you stand up.
A marriage counselor, maybe? Who would want to kiss a woman with lipstick anyways? Right? Like, lipstick is not, you wear it, you don't want to kiss someone. So is there a solution? Tell her not to wear lipstick, or just kiss her before she puts her lipstick on. Or, hopefully she takes it off before she goes to bed.
Well, I guess another sort of aspect of that question is, is there, for those who like to wear lipstick, maybe it's a very neutral lipstick, is there a better way of applying it so that it's not constantly smearing? Is she just choosing the wrong lipstick?
Oh, I think she must be, if it's smearing and she's double putting it together, they do have long-lasting lipsticks that you could buy. They're not the most attractive because they're so dry that they make your lips look dry, but that might be one solution. So for her next birthday, go get one that has a word like indelible, or what are those words that you see the marketing people write? And then put some Jones Road on top of it to make it look better.
There you go. And lastly, do you regret signing a 25-year non-compete? Would you have had the idea for Jones Road Beauty at a younger age, or did it arise from where you are today?
I definitely would not have had the idea for Jones Road at a younger age because, and I don't regret anything. The only thing I regret in my life is that I didn't do weights instead of doing aerobics. Honestly. Because all we did is aerobics back then, and it's really hard to build muscle when you get older. That is the only thing I regret.
And I guess my last question then is, do you have any wishes for the next generation when they start thinking about beauty? That person who is, the short Jewish girl in a suburb somewhere.
You know what? I hope that I had some impact on some things, but I wish that young girls would not think they need to change their lips, their cheeks. I just don't know what happened there. And I don't think young girls need retinol, like the 5-year-olds need retinol. But I just hope that people will appreciate more of a natural beauty. And I'm not saying don't color your hair and don't wear makeup and don't, if you feel like it, put lashes on. I don't really think you need to alter your faces. That's just my hope for the next generation.
Great. Bobbi Brown, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. And thank you guys so much.
Thank you so much to Bobbi Brown and Robin Givhan, and thank you all for joining us.